What if one of the most influential figures in modern music was hiding something unspeakable? For decades, Sean Diddy Combs was untouchable, a name synonymous with success, swagger, and cultural dominance. But now he stands at the center of one of the most disturbing legal storms in entertainment history. The allegations are staggering: sex trafficking, physical abuse, psychological control, and a vast network of silence that may have protected him for years. As federal investigators dig deeper, the question isn't just whether Diddy is guilty, it's how many others were complicit. Joe Rogan summed up the mood best. This isn't just scandal, it's evil at a whole new level. He's not alone in that thinking. Former associates are distancing themselves. A-list names are going quiet. And insiders say this is only the beginning. Multiple lawsuits have already been filed. Homeland Security raided his properties. And disturbing stories from alleged victims, some dating back over a decade, are painting a chilling picture of control, fear, and manipulation. Some witnesses are missing. Some evidence has mysteriously vanished. This isn't just about a single superstar falling from grace. It's about a much bigger system, one that prioritizes power and profit over justice. For years, whispers circulated. Now the truth is demanding to be heard. In this investigation, we'll break down the timeline, examine the legal implications, and reveal never-before-heard details from those closest to the story. What's really happening behind the courtroom doors? And who stands to lose the most? This is no ordinary trial. This is a reckoning. This is the trial that's tearing Hollywood apart. He built a brand on power. Now that same power may destroy him. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs has been more than just a music mogul. He's been a symbol of Black excellence, hustle, and reinvention. From launching Bad Boy Records in the 90s and producing hits for Notorious B.I.G. and Mary J. Blige, to fashion, liquor brands, and a stake in the television network Revolt, Diddy didn't just make music, he built a cultural empire. But that empire is now under siege. Federal agents have raided his properties in Los Angeles and Miami. Investigators have unsealed damning court documents. Multiple lawsuits have piled up in just a matter of months. And for the first time in his storied career, the media titan is no longer untouchable. He is, in the eyes of the law, a man accused, not celebrated. The charges against him are not just career-threatening, they're life-defining. Diddy is facing allegations of sex trafficking, physical and emotional abuse, coercion, witness intimidation, and facilitating interstate criminal activity. According to the lawsuits, this alleged abuse stretches back more than 2 decades and involves a carefully crafted system of control, luxury, and fear. The most explosive allegations first hit the public in late 2023, when singer and former partner Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit accusing Diddy of a decade-long pattern of rape, beatings, and manipulation. Just one day after the suit was filed, it was quietly settled. But the damage was done, and the floodgates were open. Since then, at least 5 more women, referred to in court as Jane Doe, Mia, and others, have come forward, each describing eerily similar patterns: lavish gifts followed by increasing control, private jets and parties masking a much darker underworld, and a consistent thread of violence and silence. Several of the victims allege that Diddy didn't act alone, that he was protected by a network of enablers, from bodyguards to lawyers to music executives, many of whom allegedly knew what was going on but turned a blind eye. One lawsuit describes a cult-like environment in which women were allegedly forced into sex acts under the threat of violence or career destruction. Another details the use of surveillance systems, blackmail material, and financial manipulation to keep victims compliant. The allegations paint the portrait of a man who used his immense wealth, influence, and fear to build not only a brand, but a personal fiefdom where he controlled everything and everyone. And it's not just lawsuits piling up. The federal government is involved now. Homeland Security's raid of Diddy's homes in March 2024 signaled that criminal charges could be imminent. Agents were seen seizing hard drives, mobile devices, and documents, with sources inside law enforcement saying the scope of the investigation is massive and multi-jurisdictional. Public reaction has been swift and divided. Some longtime fans and industry peers have withdrawn support, deleting collaborations and distancing themselves. Others have remained quiet, waiting to see which way the legal wind blows. But among survivors, advocates, and journalists, the message is loud and clear. The culture of silence is breaking. What makes this even more chilling is the duration of the alleged abuse. Some claims date back as far as the late 1990s, overlapping with some of the highest points in Diddy's career. That suggests the possibility that this empire, the fashion lines, the vodka deals, the reality shows, even the awards and philanthropic work, may have been built on a foundation of fear. He was the gatekeeper, said one anonymous accuser. If you said no to him, your career was over. And now the same power that helped him dominate music, media, and business may be the force that brings him down. This is not just a criminal trial, it's a cultural reckoning. It forces hard questions about the nature of celebrity, the loyalty of fans, and the systems that protect the powerful. If even part of these accusations are proven in court, it will be one of the most catastrophic falls from grace in modern entertainment history. As the legal battles unfold, the world is watching. What's at stake is more than one man's future. It's a test of whether true accountability is possible when billions of dollars and global influence are on the line. The empire isn't just shaking, it's starting to crumble. They weren't just victims, they were trapped, brainwashed, and used. The courtroom was silent as the first witness took the stand. It wasn't just a legal proceeding, it was a reckoning. After years of whispered rumors and private torment, the voices of Cassie, Mia, and Jane rang out with truth, pain, and a courage that cracked the courtroom air like thunder. Each of these women had once been anonymous, their trauma hidden beneath NDAs, public shame, and a culture that dismissed their stories. But now, under oath, they finally spoke. Cassie's voice trembled but did not falter. Once a young, aspiring model recruited into what she thought was a new career opportunity, she described a world of manipulation, control, and degradation. He told me this was the only way to make it. I didn't even realize how trapped I was until it was too late. Cassie detailed how she had been drugged repeatedly, describing a specific night where she awoke disoriented, surrounded by strangers in what she later learned was referred to within the group as a freak-off. These were orchestrated orgies, often involving coercion, filmed without consent, and used as leverage. Her testimony included accounts of forced acts, threats to her family if she spoke out, and being shuttled from city to city under the guise of business, only to be trafficked to powerful men. The courtroom gasped when she mentioned a known celebrity who witnessed an incident and did nothing. Mia's story was different, but equally harrowing. A dancer with dreams of making it in LA, she was targeted for her vulnerability and lack of family support. They said they were helping me, but every time I tried to leave, something bad would happen to someone I loved. Mia's account focused on the psychological torment, the gaslighting, the threats, the elaborate web of blackmail. Her abuser allegedly used recordings of her in compromising situations to control her, forcing her into compliance during events she was too drugged to remember. She described being handed pills before every encounter, always told it was just to take the edge off. Mia also testified that at one point she was trafficked internationally under a fake modeling contract, only realizing the extent of the conspiracy when her passport was taken and she was locked in a villa for days. Jane's testimony was unique because she had once helped recruit other women, not out of malice, but under the same control and manipulation that governed the others. I thought I was part of a movement. I thought we were powerful, but I was a pawn. We all were. Jane had worked in close proximity to the ringleader, helping to prepare girls for parties and photo shoots. It wasn't until she witnessed a particularly violent freak-off involving a drugged teenager that something inside her broke. She recalled being slapped and locked in a room for 2 days after voicing concern. The threats came fast after that, threats to expose her, to ruin her, to kill her. She finally escaped after faking a medical emergency at a hotel in Miami, using the opportunity to flee with only her phone and a pair of heels. Each testimony left the courtroom heavier. Journalists wept. One juror reportedly had to be excused for a moment of fresh air. The sheer weight of the deception, the scale of the abuse, and the duration, spanning over a decade, staggered everyone in attendance. And then came the public response. One of the most unexpected yet powerful reactions came from Joe Rogan. Known for his candid, often controversial takes, Rogan took to his podcast the next morning and broke down. People can say what they want about me, but what I heard today, that's not just abuse, that's evil. These women were tortured, groomed, brainwashed, and we all let it happen. He went on to apologize for ever joking about some of the people involved in the scandal, acknowledging the cultural blind spots that allowed predators to operate unchecked. His rare vulnerability became a rallying point online, with fans reposting the clip under the hashtag #ArmBelieveCassie. All three women described being given unidentified pills, often under the guise of chill pills or energy boosters. These were elite-only drug-fueled sex parties involving coerced acts, many of which were filmed. The term, once industry slang, is now tied forever to this case. Victims were blackmailed with revenge porn, legal threats, or harm to loved ones. At least 2 victims described being forced to perform with multiple partners while barely conscious. These were not isolated incidents. They were systemic. And now, finally, they're being heard. For Cassie, Mia, and Jane, speaking out wasn't about revenge. It was survival. Their words, once silenced, are now reshaping the cultural conversation about power, consent, and accountability. And in that courtroom, with their voices echoing through the silence, justice finally began to stir. When everyone's watching, no one is watching close enough. For years, Sean Diddy Combs stood at the center of America's entertainment universe. Entrepreneur, mogul, producer, and party king. He wasn't hiding. In fact, he was everywhere. Red carpets, award shows, billionaire brunches, presidential galas. He curated an image of glamour, success, and influence that was nearly bulletproof. And yet, behind the velvet ropes and inside the gated mansions, a darker truth was unfolding, one that many saw but few dared to confront. How did he operate so openly for so long? The answer is simple and damning. Power, proximity, and silence. Diddy's connections read like a who's who of cultural and political royalty. He shared stages with Oprah, danced in private clubs with Jay-Z, and posed for holiday photos with Barack and Michelle Obama. He wasn't just in the room, he was often hosting it. When someone that big moves the way he does, people assume it's all above board. But influence doesn't mean innocence, said one former industry insider who asked to remain anonymous. His close ties to entertainment gatekeepers, record executives, streaming platforms, talk show hosts, meant stories were filtered before they reached the public. His parties were legendary, often described as exclusive or invitation only. Now we know that some of those gatherings were staging grounds for what victims have described as grooming, coercion, and even trafficking. Flight logs from private jets now being reviewed by investigators paint a troubling picture. Consistent patterns of travel with known associates, influencers, and aspiring artists, some of whom were later named in civil suits. Several celebrities are now facing scrutiny, not necessarily for participating in crimes, but for witnessing abuse and saying nothing. Behind closed doors, it was an open secret. But the machine kept moving. We were told, "That's just Diddy being Diddy," one former assistant told reporters. If you said anything, you were blacklisted. Or worse. Money, fame, and access created an invisible force field. Some insiders now admit they were paid to sign NDAs. Others accepted lavish gifts, all expenses paid trips, and career opportunities that made it harder to speak out. And for some, the threat of exposure, through incriminating footage or private recordings, kept them permanently muzzled. Joe Rogan didn't mince words during a recent podcast episode. This wasn't hidden in a cave. It was in the middle of the fucking dance floor. Everyone heard things. People joked about it. Hell, I joked about it. But the machine was too big. It wasn't a secret. It was ignored. His words reflect what many are now grappling with, how culture makers, the media, and the public at large missed or willfully overlooked the warning signs. What once looked like success now reads like camouflage. The celebrity parties, the yachts, the private jets, they weren't just displays of wealth. They were tools of concealment. Diddy's case has cracked open a door into the dark underbelly of Hollywood, a world where image is everything, and where silence can be bought, enforced, or seduced. And as the investigations deepen, one truth is becoming impossible to ignore. He was hidden in plain sight, and Hollywood helped keep him there. It's not just accusations now, it's documented depravity. Until now, much of the case against Sean Diddy Combs rested on testimony, harrowing, detailed, and deeply credible. But in a turning point that stunned the courtroom and the public, a series of leaked audio recordings gave the victims' stories undeniable weight. These tapes, collected from confiscated phones, hidden recording devices, and internal security systems, weren't just suggestive. They were explicit, and they shattered the carefully constructed image of a cultural icon. The prosecution introduced 3 recordings. Each one played over the hushed courtroom like a sledgehammer crashing through glass. Tape 1 captured an audio exchange in which Diddy can be heard berating a young woman, allegedly Cassie, calling her a possession and threatening to ruin her life if she left. The rage was unfiltered, violent, manipulative, and deeply personal. Tape 2 was even more disturbing. a recording from a hotel surveillance system, capturing audio from behind closed doors. Muffled cries and a clearly intoxicated woman pleading to go home are heard, followed by Diddy's voice, calm and chilling. You know how this works. You're not going anywhere. Tape 3, the most damning, was a snippet from a so-called freak-off. Though the video portion is under legal seal, the audio played in court includes graphic sounds, and Diddy laughing with others while a distressed woman repeatedly says, "I didn't say yes." The defense scrambled, attempting to challenge the authenticity, but digital forensics had already verified the timestamps and voices. These were real. And they weren't just embarrassing, they were incriminating. Joe Rogan, in a now viral reaction clip, summed up what many were thinking. He exposed himself, on tape, literally and morally. People talked about it for years, but this is proof, not just rumors, not just stories. This is him, caught being a monster. Rogan's unfiltered commentary struck a nerve across social media, where users began resurfacing old interviews, memes, and late-night clips that had once portrayed Diddy as a charismatic party mogul. The rewatch now feels chilling. For decades, Diddy curated a brand of success, hustle, and celebration. Ciroc vodka, Bad Boy Records, fashion lines, everything spoke of ambition and excellence. But the tapes told a different story. Control, cruelty, and corruption. With every second of leaked audio, the mask slipped further. This wasn't just a fall from grace, it was a free fall, aided not by hearsay, but by his own words and actions captured in real time. And no amount of brand deals or celebrity endorsements could unplay what the world had now heard. What began as a seemingly airtight case against Sean Diddy Combs is now teetering on the edge of chaos. With emotional testimony, shocking tapes, and mounting public pressure, few could have predicted that the courtroom itself might become the battleground for a very different fight. Not just over guilt or innocence, but over whether this trial will hold up at all. Behind the scenes, the case is unraveling, not because of a lack of evidence, but because of what the defense calls procedural contamination. In a bold move, Diddy's legal team filed a formal motion for mistrial late last week, citing a fundamentally compromised process. Their core arguments hinge on the introduction of last-minute evidence, restricted witness access, and what they claim is prosecutorial overreach. Chief among their concerns is the handling of Cassie Ventura and another key witness, known publicly only as Brianna. Cassie, whose testimony initially galvanized public support, is now facing questions about the timeline of her abuse and certain dates related to alleged freak-off events. The defense pointed to travel records and emails that appear to contradict her claim of being in New York on a specific night, suggesting she may have been in Miami instead. Brianna's testimony has also come under scrutiny after leaked documents revealed a prior settlement offer involving another party linked to Diddy. The defense claims this raises questions about her motives and potential coordination between witnesses. Both women have maintained the truth of their stories, but the inconsistencies, however small, have opened the door to doubt, something the defense is leveraging heavily. Further complicating matters is the court's decision to grant anonymity and shielded testimony to two new witnesses introduced mid-trial. The prosecution argued these individuals were credible and in danger, but the defense cried foul, calling it a violation of Diddy's Sixth Amendment right to confront his accusers. One such protected witness reportedly had direct knowledge of Diddy's inner circle and parties, yet their identity remained sealed, even from the jury. In a press conference outside the courthouse, Diddy's lead attorney accused the prosecution of leaking sealed audio to media outlets and manipulating the narrative. "This isn't justice. This is a witch hunt being run in the court of public opinion," the attorney said. "The prosecution has denied all wrongdoing, but the judge has issued a stern warning to both sides regarding leaks, media contact, and the fragile integrity of the proceedings. The possibility is real. If the mistrial motion is granted, or if key evidence is thrown out due to procedural violations, the case could collapse entirely." And with high-priced lawyers, legal loopholes, and a media circus at play, Diddy's team only needs one break to turn the tide. Justice may be the goal, but right now, chaos is the reality. When people vanish, you know something darker is at play. The most chilling twist in the Diddy trial isn't in the courtroom, it's what's happening outside of it. Witnesses are disappearing, some physically, others emotionally. People who once agreed to testify have gone silent, unreachable by legal teams, family, and even law enforcement. What began as a high-profile celebrity scandal is now starting to resemble something far more sinister, a story of fear, surveillance, and psychological warfare. 3 witnesses originally listed by the prosecution have either withdrawn or gone completely dark. 1. A former security contractor who reportedly had evidence tying Diddy to a covert surveillance operation failed to appear in court. Another, a former housekeeper, left the state days before her scheduled testimony and hasn't responded to subpoenas. A third, referred to only as Witness C, was granted protective status. Days after her name was mistakenly leaked on a fringe message board, her attorney announced she would no longer testify due to credible threats to her life. Lawyers close to the case say these aren't coincidences. They're a calculated form of witness suppression. Despite a court order sealing identities, several witnesses have had their names, addresses, and employment histories leaked online. Experts point to well-funded PR firms and shell social media accounts that flood the internet with disinformation and targeted harassment, often within hours of a witness stepping forward. One witness's brother received a threatening message via burner phone. "Tell your sister to stay quiet or we make it permanent." Screenshots of the message were submitted to the court, but investigators have yet to trace the source. Perhaps the most alarming development is the quiet but confirmed involvement of Homeland Security. A sealed filing acknowledged the agency's assistance in reviewing encrypted communications and alleged international trafficking routes linked to Diddy's private flights. Sources inside the agency suggest several documents related to these investigations have gone missing, some believed to have been leaked, others allegedly wiped from internal systems. This goes way beyond celebrity, one anonymous federal source told reporters. This has national security implications. On his podcast, Joe Rogan didn't mince words. When people start disappearing, when they get doxxed or ghosted right before testifying, this isn't just law. This is control. This is psychological warfare. He compared the situation to mafia-style silencing, except cleaned up with PR and legal threats instead of bullets. His warning echoed what many now fear. If witnesses can be silenced this easily, what does that say about the power structures behind the scenes? As this case spirals into a realm of threats, vanishing witnesses, and federal oversight, the question becomes not just what happened, but how deep it goes. This is no longer just about Diddy. It's about what happens when truth itself becomes too dangerous to speak. What if Diddy wasn't the boss? Just the bait. As the Diddy case unfolds in layers darker and more disturbing than the public expected, a new question is beginning to surface, one that flips the entire narrative. What if Diddy wasn't the mastermind? What if he was just a piece of a much larger machine? Sean Diddy Combs had the fame, the money, the access. But now, insiders and investigators are starting to question how a single entertainer managed to sustain a sprawling network of alleged abuse, trafficking, surveillance, and intimidation for decades without serious interference. Theories swirling among whistleblowers and internet sleuths suggest a deeper infrastructure, one involving powerful handlers, hidden investors, and elite clients. Some believe Diddy was a high-profile facilitator, the glamorous face who could lure talent, throw the parties, and keep the cameras rolling, while others in the shadows pulled the strings. The comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein are no longer theoretical, they're direct. Epstein was seen by many as a connector, not the kingpin. He managed girls, hosted elites, and maintained dirt on high-profile figures, but many still believe he answered to people even more powerful. Could Diddy have played a similar role in a different arena? Hip-hop instead of Wall Street. The logistics of his alleged freak-offs, blackmail videos, and international connections suggest coordination, not chaos. "There's no way this guy ran this alone," said one former associate under anonymity. "Too many names, too many flights, too much money moving too quietly." Is this just speculation? Maybe. But the pattern, money, NDAs, protected names, missing witnesses, international ties, mirrors known abuse networks that took decades to uncover. And if Diddy really was just the bait, the distraction, or the party planner for something much darker, the real players may still be out there, untouched, unknown, and watching this trial unfold from behind bulletproof glass. Whether conspiracy or hidden truth, the possibility that Diddy wasn't acting alone raises terrifying stakes, because if he falls and nothing else is exposed, it may mean the true power never stood trial at all. And that's the scariest part. The front man might go down, but the system could live on. Diddy may go down, but will anyone else? As the dust settles and the headlines grow quieter, one haunting question remains. What comes next? The trial of Sean Diddy Combs has rocked the entertainment industry, not just for its shocking allegations, but for what it has revealed about the machinery behind the music. the power behind the fame, and the silence behind the scenes. But now that the spotlight is dimming, many are asking, will this lead to real change, or just another cover-up with a new face? Diddy may face serious consequences, but the infrastructure that enabled him, the handlers, enablers, fixers, and powerful associates, remains largely untouched. Industry insiders are whispering about sealed names, missing subpoenas, and other celebrities who were regulars at the same parties now under federal scrutiny. The system protects itself, one entertainment attorney said bluntly. One man can take the fall to keep the rest standing. The music world has seen this before. Scandals surface, documentaries are made, apologies issued, and then everything moves on. Will this time be any different? Joe Rogan has become a kind of cultural mirror throughout the case, reflecting what many Americans are feeling: outrage, disbelief, and skepticism. But in a recent episode, he struck a rare note of hope. Yeah, the system's rigged, but this case, it's forcing people to look harder, to talk louder. Real accountability? It's rare, but it's not impossible. He pointed to the fall of Epstein, Weinstein, and others, acknowledging that while justice may come slowly and unevenly, it can come, but only if the public keeps the pressure on. The trial has exposed rot in the entertainment world, but trials end. The challenge is what comes after. Will more victims come forward? Will complicit stars and executives be named? Will those behind the scenes, if they exist, be brought to light? Or will this all be wrapped in PR spin, closed settlements, and the next celebrity scandal? One thing's clear: Diddy may go down, but if he's the only one, justice won't have gone far enough. What happens next is up to all of us. As the final testimonies fade and the courtroom prepares for its verdict, one truth remains. This isn't just a celebrity scandal, it's a human tragedy. Behind the headlines, behind the hashtags, are real people, victims who lost years of their lives to silence, fear, and control. Cassie, Mia, Jane, and others who came forward weren't chasing fame. They were reclaiming their truth. And now all they want is peace. But the public wants something too: justice. Not just for what happened, but for what's been allowed to happen for far too long. This story of power abused, of institutions looking away, of fame weaponized, isn't new, but it's one that keeps repeating because we allow it to. Whether in Hollywood, tech, politics, or beyond, we often let charisma and influence excuse the inexcusable, and that's why staying aware matters. Staying informed, staying skeptical of those who sit too comfortably at the top. This case isn't just about Diddy, one survivor said. It's about how much we're willing to tolerate before we say enough. The Diddy case has pulled back the curtain on more than one man's alleged crimes. It's exposed a cultural pattern. Where there's power, there's often exploitation. And where there's money, silence can be bought. But not this time, not completely. People spoke, people listened, and now people are watching. The battle for truth doesn't end with a verdict. It continues in every conversation, every refusal to look away, every demand for transparency, not just from celebrities, but from the systems that protect them. The victims have done their part. They've relived their trauma so the world could see it. Now it's on us, the public, the press, the justice system, to decide what kind of world we're willing to accept. Because real change doesn't come from a headline. It comes from what we do after it fades. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This story goes beyond headlines and celebrity gossip. It's about power, silence, and what happens when the truth fights to break through. We're committed to covering it all, from the courtroom to the cover-ups, and we're not afraid to say what others won't. Whether you've been following the Diddy case from day one, or you're just now catching up, stay tuned. New developments are happening fast, and justice, or the lack of it, is still unfolding. We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Diddy's done, or is this just the beginning of something even bigger? And remember, stories like this don't disappear on their own. They're buried by money, by power, by fear, but not here, not with us. Because the truth, it can be buried, it can be threatened, but it can't be silenced. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Share this to keep the pressure on, and stay awake, because the world's watching now.